It's time to create your future by design, not default. This is Practical Change, the podcast for midlife lesbians, where we focus on relationships, work, health, and more. With your host, certified professional coach, Claire Baker of practicalchangecoaching.com.
Hello, yes, I am Claire Baker of Practical Change Coaching. Before we get started, I invite you to head over to practicalchangecoaching.com, sign up on the email list, and you will get a free, awesome guide I created called Practical Change with Designed Thinking, Lesbian Edition. I'm a big fan of extending titles that way. Today, I want to talk about choosing your thoughts carefully. Sometimes our thoughts think us. It's like we think we don't actually have any control over what we think. And sometimes that does feel quite true. I have to go along with sometimes my thoughts. My brain does what it wants, and it takes me a little while to realize, oh, wait a minute, I see what my brain just did there. So when I say choose your thoughts carefully, first it needs an underpinning in the model, the thought model that I rely on in my coaching, in my self-coaching, and in my coaching practice. First, there's a circumstance. Something happens in the world. It's irrefutable. It is a circumstance. A thing happens. And then from that thing, we have a thought about it. And the thought is, up to you. And this will come back to choose your thoughts carefully. But it's from the thought that you have the feeling, whatever you happen to be feeling about a circumstance, it's because of the thought you had about it. And depending on the circumstance, one person might see that as good news or a positive thing and have positive thoughts about it. And another person might have an opposite view of that. Politics is a great example. If your candidate wins, then you think this is awesome, and your feelings are very positive from that. But if the opponent wins, your thought usually isn't, this is awesome. But somebody out there thinks this is awesome, right? So you wouldn't likely ever get to a place of thinking this is awesome about the opponent winning, at least not on election night. We'll just say that. So you have the circumstance, you have the thought, you have the feeling that flows from the thought, and from our feelings is where we take action. So based on how we feel, that's what we do. So my candidate lost, this is awful. Maybe from that feeling of awful, you overindulge in cheesecake because that would make you feel better in the moment, you think. Maybe that's just an idea, just a suggestion. Perhaps it's not cheesecake, but maybe your actions that you take from a place of this is awful aren't, the most uplifting actions you could take. And the result you get from your actions comes back to being a reflection of the thought. You kind of prove your thought true. You think, okay, well, that's straightforward. Who can't do that? I mean, the challenge is it's actually a little harder than it might seem without practice. And so, for example, I've come up with a couple of examples where the pitfalls may lie in trying to sort out a model, a thought model, when you are trying to get from an unintentional model, which is the terrible feeling, to something that serves you a little bit better. We get to choose our thoughts, but that doesn't mean we need to make everything be happy. That's not what I'm saying at all. We do not want to whitewash the world circumstances that are based in injustice or human suffering or tragedy or anything like that, and try to make it be a positive, except that maybe it can move us toward social change or environmental protections, that sort of thing. So there might be a way to get to a positive, but in the middle of great personal suffering, I think thinking this is terrible is pretty legit, frankly. But bringing it back to our personal lives, mostly our personal lives are not consumed with big, overwhelming catastrophe. So assuming that, it's a regular day, the circumstances are usually smaller. We'll call them smaller. So here's an example. Your wife's dad sends the holiday card and addresses it only to your wife and excludes you. And your thought is, he's an asshole. And you have enough let's say you've been with your spouse for a long time, and this isn't autobiographical. My father-in-law died a long time ago. So this is, and he was lovely. He was fine. But that's not true for everybody. So I made up this example. You've got this thought, my father-in-law, what a jerk. My father-in-law is a jerk. And you've been around long enough to know that he's probably not going to change. You're probably right about this. This is a circumstance. My father-in-law is a jerk. It's a total circumstance. I can prove it. But guess what? It's still really just a thought. And probably not everybody in the world thinks that your father-in-law is a jerk. So there's that's pitfall number one, is believing your thoughts so strongly that you turn them into a circumstance in your mind. And if you turn your thought into the circumstance in the model, then it kind of goes a little haywire further down. Then you're just looking for justification. You're just trying to prove that you've correctly identified the circumstance, and it doesn't move you much further. This also happens when we're thinking about ourselves. So we can tell ourselves the same unhappy thought about ourselves enough that we believe it. An example might be, I ate the whole pizza. That's the circumstance. I can prove it. I ate the whole pizza. And my thought from I ate the whole pizza is, I have no self-control. I've proven it. I've demonstrated I have no self-control. And you believe it so strongly that you make it be your circumstance. Then you go through the world. I have no self-control. I'm an emotional eater. I am my behavior. And it feels very true. You've got a lot of evidence, but it is a thought. And it can be proven because you can change it. You can't, a circumstance is unmovable. It's kind of almost a point in time. And a thought is malleable. You can change your thoughts. So that's pitfall number one, believing your thoughts are circumstances. Pitfall number two that I've identified, even in my own life and in my own work, my self-coaching, but also with coaching clients, trying to go too quickly from a thought that it doesn't serve you to one that feels like it would do better. Doing a thought download, you're coming up with all of the things on your mind, and you pull something out that is a circumstance and a thought that doesn't feel good. You can't immediately just decide you're going to think different. Your brain won't believe you. It's like affirmations. It's like if you put Post-its all over about how awesome you are, but your brain doesn't believe it, then it's just words. Your brain's like, yeah. I'm seeing evidence of the opposite. But if we go to the father-in-law example, the father-in-law sent a holiday card and addressed it only to my spouse. You can't really go from he's a jerk to he's so awesome. Your brain won't believe you. And in that circumstance, you're like, he sent a card only to my wife. He's so awesome. That's not going to happen. Your brain won't believe you. You can't let it flow like that. It just won't work. And in the example of the circumstance, I ate the whole pizza, the thought, I'm in complete control, your brain won't let you believe. It's just not true. So you're just like making up words that don't go there. What you need to be mindful of is not rushing to find a better feeling thought until you've actually processed the feeling of the unintentional model first, at least a bit. My father-in-law sent a holiday card only to my wife, addressed only to my wife. And even in that circumstance, I've added a little bit of thought that only to my wife. My father-in-law addressed the holiday card to my wife. That is the clean circumstance. The only was my brain adding that, because you can see I have an opinion about that. My father-in-law addressed the holiday card to my wife. And then how does that feel? The thought, he left me out. That doesn't, that doesn't feel good. He's a jerk. I feel mad. Maybe I feel sad. Maybe I feel let down. How does that feel? How does it feel in my body? What is going on? Kind of coming to recognize that it is a vibration in my body. Feelings are just a vibration in my body, probably neurochemicals involved, whatever thought I had elicited some sort of neurochemical response, which maybe gave me adrenaline or something that contributed to this feeling in my body. So I have the feeling and how it feels. Acknowledge, maybe it makes my shoulders tight. Maybe it makes it hard to take a full breath. Maybe feels like pressure behind my eyes. And then from the feeling and acknowledging how it feels, you can identify the actions that came from that. Maybe from the father-in-law example, you complain to your wife that your father-in-law left you out. Maybe it's you send a hostile email or text to him to say, thanks a lot, buddy. So you can see where that is. Maybe so, and maybe it's not a direct, straight from, he's such a jerk, I'm angry, I do angry things. Maybe it's overeat, buffer with things to distract you, maybe drink, whatever. It's something that in the short term may feel like it will feel better. And then the result you get is just seeing more evidence about what a jerk your father-in-law is. So you've kind of played through that whole unintentional model, or it's, and unintentional is just the model that happens in your brain. Your brain has the thought and the rest follows from there. But recognizing that you can choose your thoughts, you can look for a better feeling thought that your brain can believe. So the third pitfall is finding a better feeling thought that you can believe, but that actually has a little bit of, or maybe even a lot of poison injected into it. For example, in the I ate the whole pizza circumstance, the thought that you might think is a better feeling thought is, I'm really going to do better next time. I'm really going to try to do better next time. And while that does sound like that's positive, and from that, something better is going to happen than I suck, I have no self-control. You can kind of tell from the feeling that you get from that thought that it's not that awesome a feeling. It's not really, it's more of a feeling of anxiety, at least as it comes out of me. I ate the whole pizza. This is fictional, by the way. I have not eaten a whole pizza in a really long time. Not that I couldn't, but I haven't. And that's, part of the thought work and trying not to do things that I regret later. I ate the whole pizza. I'm really going to try harder next time. Almost has a feeling of desperation in it. So from a feeling of desperation, what do? You sort of create opportunities to not be successful in that. It's sort of like, the Yoda, do or do not, there's no try. But there's, Yoda was wise. There's, if you try, it's almost setting yourself up to not succeed. So that's we always tell kids to try their best, do their best, that sort of thing. So I don't want to beat that one up too much, but you can kind of see the poison in that. And it can be a challenge to avoid that. It's just like, you don't want to, if you're going to work so hard to create a model, you want it to be one that's actually going to help deliver the results that you want. And it takes practice. And so my routine, I'll share it with you now, every morning, almost every morning. I can't say I'm perfect. Almost every morning. So I set a 5-minute timer and do what I call a 5-minute crappy thought download. Because sometimes my brain wakes up and is full of all of the stuff that doesn't feel very good. It's like complaints. So I do the 5-minute, I call it 5-minute crappy thought download. And sometimes I just type it. Sometimes I use voice record. And so when I use voice record, I can talk a lot faster than I write. So I have pretty long paragraph of 5-minute crappy thought download. And then I do Stop doing that. Then I set a timer, a new timer for 5 minutes for how the opposite might also be true. So, it's like looking at my crappy thought download and then finding things with, oh, well, maybe it wasn't so bad. So I give my brain an opportunity to explore how it might not have been so bad. So I'm looking at an example. So here's a part of a crappy thought download. I was worrying about work, my day job. There are some projects that I need to make progress on, but I haven't done much on this week. These are projects no one's checking in on. I'm a little worried about a thing my boss said. I thought I had everything sorted out on that topic, but apparently the person I was working with didn't convey it to my boss. This is going to be a problem. I don't want to have to try to backfill on that decision. It would be quite ungood for team morale. I said that. So that gives you a sense of it. And then in my 5 minutes of maybe the opposite is true, here's the part that related to that part of the crappy thought download. Even though I haven't been making much progress on the things I say I want to get done, I have time to work on them, or I can decide to let some of it go, and I can manage my mind on all of it. There's probably a huge ton of stuff that I put on my list just so that my brain will have a reason to feel like I'm not taking care of things. So I'm watching my brain work on that. My brain's negativity bias, it just keeps looking for evidence that things aren't fine. So that was, a chunk of, I'm worrying about work. Here, things not going well at work. And then the opposite of true of, well, these things really aren't out of control. It's not as grave as my brain wants me to think it is. So, and then I think because maybe I still had time left on my timer, I made a list of things that I could do on that very day that I would enjoy in addition to getting work done that I needed to get done. So I could go for a walk, go to the health food store. I could listen to the latest Rachel Maddow podcast installment. I could do 10 minutes of yard work or I'd get outside for a little bit. And then I could also, I made a little list about things I needed to move forward on my day job. My unintentional model in there from my list of work tasks was there are 8 things on my list. The thought from that was, this is my unintentional model. This is where my brain went. These are things that have been on my list all week. My feeling was rebellious at the time. It was like, yeah, I'll show you. I do what I want. So I felt rebellious. My action line, I continued to let my little inner rebel not make progress on those things. I was doing other things first. I was being distracted or unfocused, and I wasn't enjoying my time doing the things that I was doing instead of my work. I was not recognizing the things that I was accomplishing because I was just focused on what I wasn't getting done. And I continued this cyclical thought pattern of noticing everything I wasn't getting done. And my result was nothing came off my list. Everything that was on my list stayed on my list. From the feeling, so in taking a few minutes to feel that rebelliousness, what does that feel like? How does that feel? I feel, just kind of, I don't know. Mostly I notice it in my facial expression, kind of scowly, maybe tighten my shoulders, maybe holding myself rather rigidly. Then I created an intentional model. Is the way I did it in this example and in others, is to come up with a variety of alternate thoughts. So my thought in this one was, these things have been on my list all week, the 8 things. And so the possible other thoughts that I offered myself were, I could probably get a lot of this stuff done if I get started early. I could probably get them all done today. I don't actually need to do all of these things today. I should do the work, the day job work things first because they're sucking up my brain more. I can be curious about why my brain has me stuck. That was kind of true, but that's it did not feel like, that felt like, yeah, shut up. Shut up, Claire. That was horrible. I don't like that one. So I just didn't like it. I didn't pick it. I can prioritize and schedule these things. Yeah, that's a snooze, right? And then I came up with, I can gamify this list. Oh, I kind of liked that one, because then it turned it gamify. I could make my list a game. I could turn this. Oh, so that kind of caught my attention. So I used that thought. I have 8 things on my list. I can gamify this list. And that made me feel clever. And I love to feel clever. I love to solve stuff when it's a puzzle, So then I figured out from there how I could get my walk in while getting something else done. If I have a phone call while on my walk, I could schedule the trip to the health food store for right at the end of the workday. So I got to see that as a bonus for the end of the work. I could do a little bit of yard work before I needed to sign on to my day job that morning. I could connect with my team to see what I was seeing on my list that maybe I could delegate, or they could help me with, or they could help me get unstuck on anything. And I could give myself time at the end of the day to assess where I was, and then put on the next day what was still left. Like, did I win? How if I got everything done, yay, I'm a winner. B, if I got it 80% done, that's still pretty awesome. So how could I evaluate my success by the end of the day? And my result then was I got a lot of things done, or my prediction in this intentional model, which actually played out in real life, was I got a lot of things done and I experienced it as fun or satisfying. That's kind of a long journey through my morning routine, but 5 minutes of crappy thought download, 5 minutes of looking for evidence the opposite is possible, doing the unintentional model that just comes up, feeling the feelings, looking for some alternate thoughts that feel better and also believable, that give me a feeling that is something that I want to experience. Oh, I do like feeling clever. How can I get to feeling clever? Oh, the thought I need there is, I bet I can game this. And then from there, I can move forward. That's what I wanted to share with you today. So choose your thoughts carefully. That's my takeaway. There are some pitfalls. If you don't believe your thoughts necessarily, your thoughts are probably not true. They're not circumstances for sure. Pitfall number 2, don't go too far in looking for a thought that you cannot believe. Don't repeat affirmations if they don't feel true to you. It won't help. And pitfall number 3, keep an eye out for those thoughts that are really wolves in sheep's clothing. They look like they're better feeling thoughts, but really they're negative thoughts kind of wrapped in a nicer wrapper. That's it. Head to practicalchangecoaching.com, sign up for the email list, get a great free guide, Practical Change with Design Thinking, lesbian edition, and I'll catch you on the next podcast.